Today we have a fantastic tips and tactics video for you on the brand new Adeptus Custodes and Sisters of Silence rules that just came out from Games Workshop. Spiky bits. Alright, welcome back Hobby Maniacs. Baer here on another fantastic hobby hump day. We've got new rules. It's crazy. Games Workshop has listened to all the fans out there, all the hobbyists, everybody that lamented and gnashed their teeth when Games Workshop came out with the Adeptus Custodes and the Sisters of Silence rules last week. But there was a little bit of a catch, wasn't there? It was just for Unbound. And you know what? Well, now we got regular 40k rules because they shoehorned them into a couple of formations on the fly after, basically the public had a lot to say about it, not being able to play with their toys that come in their expensive new box set. So good guy GW, they sprang right into action, and we've got the rules that we're going over today. Of course, it was a 4-page PDF, and to be quite honest, I really wasn't going to cover that much because it was something that you really weren't going to see that much. It was going to be that thing like, hey, can I play with this? Hey, I don't care, that's cool. But now we've got rules for it, and I expect that we'll see a lot more of these than we would if they were Unbound only. Now, that's not to say Games Workshop isn't going to come out with a supplement at some point that includes these rules and probably the rules for playing with the Tartarus guys too, or Tartaros, whatever you call them. The new plastic versions of the old resin Terminator armor. That actually, I think it was almost fine cast because the ones I got, they weren't the old Forge Roll quality there, but still love it. Still love the models. The new ones are fantastic. The Iron Armor's fantastic. The whole box set's amazing. But let's get back to the rules, shall we? So these guys are definitely going to make a splash in games of 40k because the Custodes are pretty much everything the Paladins were except for a Feel No Pain, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure. And the Sisters are cheaper than taking a Caluxus. So I feel like both of these are poised to impact both competitive and casual games of 40k here in the near future. I definitely hope that we'll see a supplement, but you never know. Now, a little bit of bookkeeping aside, just for a couple seconds, maybe a minute, you might notice something different here on this video. We're trying out our new Twitch stream software, so we will be coming to Twitch in the near future. Spiky Bits TV, make sure you add it to your favorites over on there. No timetable on it. We got, as you can imagine, we always have a lot going on here at Spiky Bits, but this is a step in the right direction, and hopefully the sound's coming through well for you all, and the pictures hopefully crisp. Now, I know a little bit of lighting on one of the features on here isn't going to be the greatest, but this is kind of like a temporary thing I set up here in the Beats Lab. Now, speaking of Beats Labs, this is a brand new Beats Lab. I know you can't tell, but what I'm looking at is all new stuff. New equipment, new gear, and new sorts of combinations plugged into different things. I literally spent 5 hours getting all of this stuff to talk to each other properly. All I know is the files are in the computer, and hopefully they'll stay there and continue to work in sync so that we can keep bringing you these features and upping our quality of the products and of the content that we're bringing you. So let's stop right there and let's jump right in to our tips and tactics segment on the brand new rules. Alright, so here is the appendix. Now, when we do these tips and tactics, generally they take super long to record and they're usually like an hour long, but we've only got a 6-page PDF, which I feel like isn't that bad. So we are gonna come over here and take a look at the appendix first. Now, this is for the Custodes themselves because I want to show you the Guardian Spear right here. The Guardian Spear is a fantastic weapon, and we wanted this to be so much more than it was because if you take the Guardian Spear, you can't take the Storm Shield. And if you can't take the Storm Shield, you don't have an invulnerable save. But Games Workshop solved that problem for us with their formation that just came out. But before we get to that, I want to go over all of the wording in here. So of course we've got ranged weapons, which is the Bolt Caster. It's 12 inches, strength 4, AP 5, assault 2, Hall of Fire special rule, which gives it snapshots at PS2. So that's kind of cool. Isn't quite as bad as hitting on 6s normally, but it's still, you know, it's a step in the right direction, I feel like, right there. Now, then you've got the special piece of warrior called the Custodes of Vexilla, which is just a fancy name of saying standard bearer. And this standard gives not only all armies of the Imperium within 12 inches the banner, the fearless special rule, but also all armies of the Imperium in the same unit as the banner, +1 attack while the banner is still alive. Now, that's very important terminology, because remember all the shenanigans with like chapter tactics don't stack, Space Marines are in the same squad? Well, this specifically says how it affects the stuff in the same squad. So kudos to Games Workshop for being very specific with this terminology here. Now, something to remember is if you switch out the Vexilla, you aren't going to be able to take a Guardian Spear. So you're going to lose a little bit of effective offensive output, I guess. But in the long run, not that big of a deal, because you're going to see here exactly how big of a blender this squad can really be. And of course, you have the option to take the Storm Shield, and the Storm Shield works just like we expect it to work here in Warhammer 40k. It's a 3-up invulnerable save, and they don't get a +1 attack, which is fine. Got it. Now, if you do take the Storm Shield, you have to field the Sentinel Blade, which is right over here on the right. And that says it's strength of user, AP3, melee attack. Now remember, these guys do come with the Power Knife, but the Power Knife is not going to give you that extra attack, okay? So, it is what it is. I'm not exactly sure why you take the Power Knife, because I guess because you have an extra melee weapon, but you would have an extra melee weapon with the Custodian Spear, or the Guardian Spear, but I don't know. I don't know what the purpose is here, but that's okay, because you're two-handed and you're not going to get the extra attack. So maybe it's an oversight, maybe not. Maybe there's something bigger, better coming out. Maybe there will be Custodians in power armor that have the Power Knife. That would be pretty interesting, because we know some of the Sabretooth Games artwork, there was power armor Custodians as well, not just the big baddies that are Terminator size that we see here. Okay, so going back up to the Guardian Spear. It is a strength +1 AP2 melee two-handed weapon, okay? Now, it does have a built-in bolt gun, which you can fire it using, in the assault phase, or excuse me, you can fire it using a bolt gun. It can do both, but remember, if you fire a rapid-fire weapon, that's bad. So, you might not want to shoot the bolt gun, right? Part of it, because unless you are assault. So, block once per game. This is the mechanic that I wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit, where it kind of shines through once you combine it with the formation here. So once per turn in the assault phase, each model equipped with the Guardian Spear can attempt to block a single attack that targets its unit. After the 2-hit roll has been made, roll a dice for each model attempting to block. If the result is higher than the attack roll, the attack is blocked and has no effect. The attacks that do not have a 2-hit roll cannot be blocked. So stuff like Stomp is still going to get through. Stuff that, you know, might be AP2 attacks coming back at the squad. Well, you might have a chance to block those. Now keep in mind, this right here, once per turn, per the main rulebook on page 17, if they just say it this way, that means player turn, okay? So you basically get to do it during your assault phase and your opponent's assault phase as well. So that's a very important distinction to know. And let's see, there was one other thing here. Now, that basically is all the big stuff I wanted to cover there. Oh, so the Sentinel Blade can be fired as the bolt caster, and that is the assault weapon. So the Guardian Spear counts as a bolter, which counts as rapid fire, which if you shoot it, you cannot assault. So because these guys aren't relentless. So maybe there's a way to combo some sort of relentless to get it into the squad. I think you could do it with, if you took a Tartaros armor guy, or not Tartaros, Cataphractii armor guy, captain, and put it into the squad from the Angels of Death rules, but that seems kind of wacky because they're Custodians. Why would they have a Space Marine captain in there? It seems like a overreach of resources, right? Okay, so here's the formation. 1 to 3 Custodian guard squads. You can take 1, but you can take up to 3, because if you take up to 3, all models in the formation have have a 5-up invulnerable save instead, okay? So 3 units from this formation on the battlefield, i.e. alive. All models in this formation have a 5-up invulnerable, which is pretty huge when you start doing the math on it. These guys have 2 wounds, toughness 5, now they have a 5-up invulnerable. Like I said, the only thing they're lacking is feel no pain, but it's still pretty solid. Now, points-wise, these guys are 260 points. They're 42 points each, which is way less than a normal Terminator, obviously. And they're way better than any Terminator out there, in my opinion. Now, granted, you can't take a Thunderhammer and take a Storm Shield in that regard, but these guys have a lot of potential to put out damage on the table. And here's why. Because you're swinging with 3 attacks right off the bat here. You get +1 from the charge. You don't get +1 for 2 close combat weapons with a Guardian Spear, but you get +1 from the Vexilla, which is that standard the guys hold there. So a 5-man squad, you have 1 sergeant. He actually gets 6 attacks, 4 base, +1 for charge, +1 for Vexilla. So he's rocking 6 attacks out. The rest of the guys are only rocking 5 attacks out, right? However, one of those is a whatchamajigger, the Vexilla guy. So really, you're only getting 3 guys with 5 attacks each. So that's 15 attacks from the 5 guys that have the Guardian Spear. Then you've got 6 coming through with the Sergeant. So that's 21 attacks at Strength 6, AP 2, okay? So that is pretty good when it comes to damage output. Now, sure, you got the 3 base attacks for your Vexilla, whatever. We're not even gonna count that. That's basically like a little tiebreaker just for kind of doing the math here, so to speak. So you've got 21 attacks coming in at AP2 on anything. Now, another key here is these guys are weapon skill 5, which is really good. So that means you're going to be hitting most things on 3s, and they're also strength 6. So you're going to be wounding most things on 2s, okay? So 21 attacks. You're basically, because we have that tiebreaker, we'll just throw it in there for some of the dice. You're basically going to be hitting 18 times. And on a 2-up, you're basically going to be wounding around 15. So doing 15 strength 6 AP2 wounds to any squad out there is pretty huge. Now, granted, they might be invisible, you might be hitting them on 6s, but that kind of leads us to our next point with the Sisters of Silence, because the Sisters of Silence now are not really affected by having to field them in such large numbers. Like, you have to basically take these guys in a squad of 3 for 700, or 3 units of them for 780 points to be super effective. The Sisters do not suffer from that problem, but we'll get to that here in a second. So Sisters of Silence, they have the Bane of Psychers special rule, which gives them an unprecedented precision strike and precision shot special rules when they're attacking anything with Psyker, Brotherhood of Psyker, Psychic Pilot, etc., etc. They also have the Psychic Abomination rule, which basically means they suck down that warp charge. Anybody within 12, friend or foe, with the special rule gets -3 leadership. They don't generate any warp charge, and they only harness warp charge points on a roll of 6, even if the unit would otherwise harness warp charge on another result. A unit that includes any models with the special rule can never be targeted or affected by psychic powers, other than hit by beams or novas and things like that. And if they move within 12 inches of a model with a special rule, or vice versa, it turns off any of those blessings or maledictions that might be running around the table there. Now, GW is very quick to point out that the Psychic Abomination special rule does not apply when this unit is embarked into transport or building. Very important distinction there. Now, they can be armed with bolt guns, flamers, or this fantastic Executioner Great Blade over here, which is +1 strength AP2 melee two-handed, which we're going to see. There's a reason it's +1 strength, because they are just humans after all, so they were strength 3s. Now they're swinging at strength 4. Now they have Psych Out Grenades, which are very familiar to a lot of you out there that are already using the Calyxus Assassin. Strength 8, range 8, strength 2, Assault 1, Blast, Psyshock, basically causes the perils of the warp. In addition to any other damage. Now, in Assault, and I have not to this day checked this rule, but I'm not sure if this is new or if it isn't, but basically, if you have the Psych Out Grenades, any psychers charging you do not get bonus attacks from charging. I'm not sure if that's new or if that is actually under the Calyxis's special rule in the their data slates. They came in both in the White Dwarf, and I think they're in something else too. But man, it's just it's kind of hard to keep these all straight. But anyways, it's all here now, so it's all 100% legal and on the up and up. Now, going back up to the sisters themselves, here's their formation, which is 1 to 3. I imagine a lot of people are just going to be taking them in ones. When generating warp charges, their special rule, on each of the psychic phases, your opponent adds 1 less dice to their warp charge pool for each unit from this formation after the first it is on the battlefield. So it behooves you to take more, but you don't necessarily have to because they're kind of already doing their job. And they combo well with turning off things like invisibility. And also, those Custodians don't need psychic powers. And you know, as far as I can tell, like granted, it's great to reroll hits and things like that, but there's guys you can put in there to give them hatred and things, you know? Like, it's all good in the hood. Really, they just seem to suffer from a lack of feel no pain, which we have some ideas on how to fix that. Like I said, Sanguinary Priest would definitely help out as well. So here's the sisters themselves, Sisters of Silence, 75 points, almost half price of a Calyxis Assassin. Here's all their stats right here. Like I said, they're Strength 3, Toughness 3. Now, curiously, they're Toughness 3 models on 32mm bases, which I kind of thought was cool to see, to be quite honest, because let's face it, they look great on these bases here, even though, because they have such wide stances with the way they were sculpted. I love it. So they come with bolt gun, they come with close combat weapons, psych out grenades that we already talked about, all the special rules we already talked about, but remember, they are fearless, which is pretty dope. Now you can field up to 5 additional for 15 points each, so you can make the squad bigger or smaller depending on what you want to do. Upgrade one to a Sister Superior for that extra attack, that's really what you're paying for. You can take the Executioner Great Blade for free, switch out for a Flamer at 2 points each, super effective against Eldar, or anybody that you might have to, you know, conversation against or something like that. But at the end of the day, the bolters are good too. I feel like the Great Blade might be where it's at. It just kind of depends on the role, like if you're hiding them in bunkers, popping them out, or if you're putting them in transport of some kind, etc., etc. It really just kind of comes down to it. But having them on the field definitely is a bane for a lot of models out there, I feel like. Now, you're probably like, hey, how would you build an army with these guys? Well, just so happens we have a couple of ideas here. So first off, these are some of the some of the army lists that Kenny came up with. We talked about them on the Long War back when Blood Angels came out. But the cool thing about both of these lists right here is that you could mostly shoehorn in the formation of the Golden Legion Task Force for 780 points by taking something out of one of these, and also have some points left over to kind of wiggle around and maybe take a squad of the sisters, or maybe not. So let's take a look at the one on the left, right here first, I feel like, okay? So this particular one right here is the combined force of Blood Angels, Ultramarines, and Raven Guard. Obviously, this is kind of like an all-in Alpha Strike kind of thing with Skyhammer Annihilation following, or hitting simultaneously with the Archangel's Orbital Strike Force. Now, there's all sorts of ways to wiggle around with this and do things, but I think basically the best way to go, if you wanted to put the Grey Knights in, or the Custodians in, would be take out this section right here, which would leave you a pretty decent chunk of points left over, but you would still have this 10th Company Task Force to give you the locator beacons to drop both of these units in with your 15 Custodians and your 15 Terminators. But more importantly, it would give you some points left over that you could do things like the bunker and stuff over here, or one of these Inquisitors to kind of combo it and put them in squads and do a couple of things with the sisters, kind of pop them out, turn some stuff off, pop them back in a bunker hatch, kind of run away. So that was one good combination right there, I felt like. And it's actually, it would be pretty easy to do, to be quite honest. You would just need to get the models out of the Prospero box. And then over here, kind of the same type of thing. You could take out this Flesh Terror Strike Force, or you could kind of go the other way with it and just put Custodians in there and just kind of make a line of dudes. Or another option would be you could switch back to this side here and keep in these components, but take out the Archangel Orbital Strike Force. Now you would have to slim down a few things, like probably because you are at 260, so you're gonna be over a little bit on taking 3 squats. So it's a little bit of a shell game to do it over here. It's a little bit easier to do here, especially if you sub out the Skyhammer Annihilation Force. But those are just some general ideas, I feel like, to get you started on going down the right path. Now, this one's cool when you're rocking the Flush Terrors, because it's a lot easier to get that Sanguinary Priest on a jump pack or something like that deep strikes in, etc., etc. And then that way you can start getting your feeling of pains. But also, the Flush Terror Strike Force gives you access to Chaplains, which also give you access to Hatred, which gives you those re-rolls. Not that you necessarily need re-rolls when the Custodians are already hitting on that fantastic 3-up, but, you know, it is what it is. There's nothing is better, or there's no overkill like Overkill. I'm sure I Trailer Park Boys that one. Anyways, so that is my ideas on how you could field these guys in just, you know, some of the lists we talked about on the Long War. Now, another cool thing that we're going to be doing on Twitch too is kind of showing you different products and things like that, bringing you a lot of different things that we might have laying around here in the Beats Lab. So what I wanted to show you was just how easy it is to paint these models, because it's basically gold trimmed out with some reds, etc., etc. If you haven't checked out the G-Dub paint guide, the Burning Up Prospero guide, it is a fantastic value for $10. I feel like it's pretty amazing, and I actually have it right here. I'm going to show it to you real quick using my spiffy second cam. Boom. So this is the guide itself, which you can kind of see here, and it's really cool. It's 45 pages long. I've already done an unboxing video of it, but for those that haven't seen it, this is basically how easy it is to paint gold. You spray it, you wash it, you detail it a little bit, hit it with some reds and things like that, and you're good to go. Even the sisters are that easy to do. Like, I mean, right there. And then you just detail them out. So, sure, it's 15 models, and the sisters might be 5, but it's pretty easy to really knock these guys out of the park, I feel like, if you just hunker down and get it done, because they're pretty much all, you know, the same base color. You don't have to get in there and do all sorts of different detailings and things like that. So I'm really stoked. I think this is a fantastic new release by Games Workshop. They listened to what we had to say, which is even more amazing. They listened to the direct community input or outcry, whatever you want to call it, about not being able to play with these rules, and I can't wait to see. Maybe they'll just kind of throw out some test like they did with the FAQs, like, hey, here's our test rules for the whatever release. What do you guys think? And then people would be like, yo, well, how do we play with that in normal 40K? So it's a great precedent. I cannot say enough good things about what Games Workshop did in the past week with these rules, and going back and adjusting them based on the community response. The Burning Up Prospero paint guide is another fantastic value that I think for $10, pretty much a must-have in my opinion. This thing is amazing, and it's not to mention, I just showed you the stuff about the Custodians and things, but you have guides on how to paint all the legions in this thing. It's pretty amazing, and for $10, I cannot remember a time that I spent $10 on a Games Workshop product and I was like, wow, I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of use out of this. Well, maybe my $20 Steam Scraper. I was like, that's expensive, but I swear I use that thing like every day, and I love it. I hope they never discontinue those things, because it was probably the best $20 I ever spent. So best $10, best $20, Citadel Steam Scraper. You heard it here first. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed our tips and tactics video on the new Custodians and Sisters of Silence rules, and our little Twitch beta preview for the upcoming Spiky Bits TV stream channel thing, whatever the kids are calling it these days. So if you have any questions or comments, or if I have omitted anything or made any errors, please leave it in the comments below. Spiky Bits.
Make sure you stay in the trenches by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.